blessed me so much. And I remember my football coach, he said, "Do you want to come here and get a great degree, play Division I football, maybe play in the NFL?" And he said, "It'd be a great job, and you'll marry a beautiful woman." He said, "Do you want to come?" I said, "That sounds incredible." And sure enough, it all happened. And SMU was just phenomenal for me. But God has really blessed our family, and that's really why I wanted to write the book, because I felt like there were so many blessings that have been put upon us that I wanted to share those. And one of the main people that I want to thank is my wife, Ashley. Let's give her When I got to SMU, I came in December in '03, and I met Ashley in January. And I wanted to date her right from the beginning. How could you not, right? And Ashley didn't want anything to do with me. He's like this weird California guy. I was riding my longboard down this boulevard here, and if you look around, there's not a lot of longboards that are riding around here. And she didn't have anybody that she could fact check and figure out what was going on with this guy. And so it took a little while, but then just persistence. I guess that's why I got a sales career. With persistence. We started dating in September of '04, and eventually in January of '09 got married, and married for 15 years. Got my kids over here. Catherine is somewhere around here. Catherine and James and Allison. Allison just flipped over the book a second ago all the way to the back and said, "This is my favorite part," and it says her name in there. Right, Allie? You like that one? Anyway, you think about writing a book. I really didn't know how to do that, and there were so many things that kind of got put together for me to do it. Ann Lovett is right here behind us. She was actually the editor that helped me with this, and sitting right there at Sewell Lexus, I met a lady named Valerie, and we were talking, and she said, "You should write a book." And I said, "Well, I've actually kind of started. I have all these journals," and I showed her some of my journals. And I said, "I have all these journals. I have all these ideas. I've written a bunch of short stories that are really just to document things for me and my family, but I don't know what to do with them." And she said, "Well, I have a friend named Ann. And Ann can get it in a format that can be published, and then she could connect you to a publisher." And I didn't really, I said, I kind of put that off for a while, and then over time, Ashley, I had to talk her into it. I said, this is really going to be, I'm probably not going to make any money on this. It's probably going to be more of spending money. And so we have to be okay with what I'm going to spend on here. And we set a budget, and we started moving forward. And we blew the budget. This is part of it as well. So Ashley, one time, we were in the process of putting this all together, and she said, "Jared, do you want me to help you?" I said, "Of course, yeah, I want you to help me." She said, No. "Do you really want me to help you?" And I said, "Yeah, I need help." She said, "Okay, we got to start all over here. We got to do this thing." And so really, her name should be on the book, the author of the book, because she just did an amazing job, and just really, really thankful. So my in-laws are also here, so David Bonilla and Martha Bonilla. So thankful for them. I remember Ashley's 21st birthday, meeting Martha for the first time, and they just always treated me so well. Everybody here in Texas treated me so well. I've actually been here in Texas longer than I've been in California now. So I moved here as a 20-year-old, and now coming up, I'll be 41 next month, and so I'm on the other side, full-blown Texan now, and here for the long haul. But right here on campus, so in, 2006, right before graduation, I was asked to have a speech to the Board of Trustees. It was a dinner called Dining with Decision Makers. And they asked me, and I just had my eyes set. I wanted to play in the NFL, and I was still trying to work out with some different teams and do some things. And if it left to my own, I would have not come. I would have just said no, because that's really what I wanted. Public speaking made me incredibly nervous, and I was extremely anxious. And so I was actually going to say no. And Ashley, she said, "Do you understand the opportunity?" I said, "I'm not sure what you're talking about, but I'm not going to do it." And she said something to the effect of, "Are you an idiot?" And I said, "Probably." And I said, "But I'm still not going to do it." And then she looked at me and she said, "Yes, you are." And I said, yes, ma'am, I can do that. I'll go do it. So even back then, she helped me write a speech and prepare for the event. And the speech was really about my life. And that's kind of what I wrote about here in the book, too, of going back to California, Tehachapi, California. Anybody ever been there, Tehachapi, California? Yeah, I got my little sister here, my brother-in-law, and my nephew and niece as well. So they're here representing the family. And certainly would love to have my parents here, my sister Carly and her husband and her daughters, but they weren't able to make it. But a lot of times when you say Tehachapi, people say, God bless you. You know, that's not a sneeze. That's actually where I grew up. It's in the mountains up north of Los Angeles. And, you know, the values that I learned were from my parents. At 13 years old, they told me if you want something that you're going to have to work for it. And I really didn't like that. I didn't like that lesson. I have some of my neighbors here. They still see me out in front of my house. I still mow my lawn today to remind myself where I grew up, make sure that I keep those values. And I mowed lawns, I framed houses, I poured concrete, I made pizzas, I worked in the grape fields. Eventually in junior college, I worked in the carrot fields. That was one of the hardest jobs I ever had. It was 10-hour days, 6 a.m. to 4 p.m. It was Monday through Saturday, and it was actually minimum wage. And because of the migrant workers that mostly work in that industry, even if you're an American citizen, it's minimum wage, no time and a half, no double time. And I would work until 4, then I'd drive and I would go lift weights, football team in junior college. Then I'd play 7-on-7. Probably should have went to bed at that time, but I had a couple of college roommates, and so bed wasn't in the agenda. And we would stay up and have fun, and then get back up again, 6 a.m. And those are the values that my parents had that at the time I really didn't realize it really was setting me up for great success, and I'm so thankful for that. But just like a lot of kids here playing out on the field, I had dreams of being a professional athlete, and my whole life I played football, and I played basketball, and I played baseball, and I did that all through senior year in high school. So I played all 3 sports. And in the small town, I felt like the king. I got MVP of all 3 sports my senior year. So I was feeling good. I'm like, man, I am the man, right? And had my dreams of getting a Division I offer, and unfortunately, that did not happen. And it was really deflating. And, you know, I had a tough game, my last game of football in high school. I actually made a bad play. I threw a pass and got down within the 10-yard line. Time was running out, and I was supposed to spike the ball, and I didn't. Instead, I turned and handed it to the running back, and we actually lost in the championship game. And so that was something where I was like, I don't know if I can ever play football again. I don't know if I want to play football again. And I was talented in baseball, so I went to another school and actually played baseball. And then I hit some adversity there. I wasn't going to start. I was a pitcher in high school, left-handed pitcher, but I can only throw in the low to mid-80s, and some of those pitchers at junior college could throw 100, and so mine looked like little pea shooters coming out at that time, and I wasn't going to play. I had a 2-year window, and so I actually ended up quitting baseball, and it was a really difficult transition. I moved from playing baseball at one junior college to playing football at another junior college. I worked the whole off season in the spring and the summer. That's when I worked in the carrot fields as well, getting prepared. And then in the first game, actually the second game of the season, I broke my collarbone. And so then I'm out again for another full year. And so my first 2 years after high school, I played football and quit, played baseball and broke my collarbone. And I was really in a tough spot. And thankfully, I had a great season. My parents really love them for it because they made me stay the course. There were so many times that I wanted to give up and stop playing and quit. And there were people saying, you know, this is a guy who can only play in high school. He's not good enough for college. And all those things that you think you would hear. And, you know, you never know when you're going to get exposure. Trey Haverty actually played for Texas Tech. And there was a guy that went to Tech. His name was Robert Johnson. Robert Johnson played junior college quarterback for Reedley Junior College. He was the top quarterback in the country out of junior college. And so every scout in the country came to watch him. I had a good game, and because he was getting exposure to Texas schools and eventually to Texas Tech, there was a lot of people there that were watching him. And that's what got me exposure to SMU. So just having that good game there got me that exposure. And in junior college, I had 77 hours. And so you only need 60 to graduate. And I had this astronomy class that I had really thrown off because I didn't need it, and it was difficult. And the instructor was way into it, and I was way not into it. And I didn't think I needed it. But when I started going through the process of SMU, I had 77 hours. SMU dropped me down to 41 hours. And I petitioned 12 of them. They gave me 6 of them. And so, but that was with me passing that astronomy class. And so I got a buddy named Bob. Many of you know Bob. Bob was my roommate at the time, and he's not the brightest bulb, but he's my good friend from kindergarten. Me and Bob made flashcards and studied that test relentlessly. And I had to get a 96 on that test to get into SMU. And the best grade I got was like a 60 for the semester. And so it was an uphill battle, to say the least. And I got a 96. And when I was going in there, though, before I got that, I had my truck packed. I'm getting ready to come here down to SMU. My truck's packed, and I had to go check with the instructor. Said, hey, did I get the right grade? And the instructor told me he didn't. And it was a classroom like this, and I started getting real sad and walked off to the door. And by the time I got to the door, he said, oh, I'm just kidding. He said, here, I didn't think that was a good time for a joke. It didn't seem like it to me. But also for everybody here, the children especially, the details are very important, right? This street right over here is called Ownby Drive, O-W-N-B as in boy, Y. Well, when I sent my transcript, for whatever reason, I sent it to Ownby Drive, Ownby with a V like Victor. I was thinking of Victor, right? But, and so, it actually, the official records didn't make it to SMU, so I got the news, I had my truck packed, I'm getting ready to come over here, but the paperwork didn't quite make it. And so I went to the office and said, hey, is my paperwork here? They're about to close for the weekend. And they didn't have it. And so, but the school said, if you don't have that paperwork, you can't come. And so I called one of my coaches. I said, hey, coach, I got a problem. I need my paperwork, my transcripts. They didn't make it. And the office said they don't have them. Well, we found an associate that actually met us in the office. And we opened one of the drawers, and lo and behold, it was right there. My transcripts were there. And coach said, I might get fired. He said, but you're going to SMU, and you guard this with your life. So I put it under my pillow as I was coming. And also in the book, my truck was very important to me because it kind of set the framework of who I am. Manual transmission, Toyota Tacoma, manual windows, manual locks. I packed my whole life in the back of that truck and drove it all the way out here. I had a tarp over the back. And so you imagine pulling up here at SMU, right? I pulled up here in my truck with a tarp my whole life with the tarp over it. And I said, hey, coach, he said, come on in, let's come to the stadium and talk. I said, well, before I come in, I got to get my stuff out, because if somebody steals my stuff, that's my whole life, I don't have anything. Coach Bennett kind of wraps his arm around me and said, buddy, you can leave it in there all semester long. Nobody wants your stuff in. And so I knew at that time I was in a different place, right? And, they told me, they said, you have a chance to be the starting QB, and depth chart is wide open. And then as the depth chart started coming out, I was 3rd or 4th or 5th string. That's kind of debatable, but I certainly wasn't 1st or 2nd. And, over time, I just was trying to get settled in and having a little difficulty. And just sometimes for me, I'd gravitate to go back. And my parents said, absolutely not. They said, the same values that work in Tehachapi, California will work in Dallas, Texas. And you're going to stay the course and you're going to figure it out. And lo and behold, over time, I was able to get some playing time. Actually, my first game that I was able to play was against Oklahoma State. And I didn't play the first game against Texas Tech. The Red Raiders blew us out here. And then I didn't play the second game against TCU, the Horned Frogs, Lewis out as well. And my dad, he always forces me to have conversations. And he said, Jared, you're going to go in and talk to the coach? I said, no, I'm not going to do that. He said, yeah. He said, you came up there to play, and you're going to go look him in the eye and tell him that you want to play. And so I went to my offensive coordinator, Rusty Burns, and I said, Coach, I want to play. And I came up here to get a chance. And Coach Burns kind of said, you're talking to the wrong guy. I said, well, what does that mean? He said, you got to go down in the office here and talk to the head coach. And so I marched down to Bill Bennett's office, and I started talking to him. I said, Coach, I came here to play. And he said, you think you're that damn good, huh? I said, I didn't say that. I just said, I want to play. And he said, listen, here's how simple it's going to be. I'm going to put you in against Oklahoma State. They're the best team on our schedule this year, and it was on the road. He said, it might be the first quarter, and it might be the fourth quarter. And when you come in, he said, you better be ready. And he said, listen, I'll tell you this, if you don't play well, you'll never play again. He said, do you understand me? I said, sir, I couldn't hear you, sir. I said, yes, I understand you. And so, third quarter, we were down 50-0. Just getting smoked. And he put me in the game, and I was ready. Ashley was down there with my roommate Jeff, and they were watching and rooting me on. And the fourth play, I faked it to the running back. I was able to pull it out if I wanted to, so I pulled it out, and I ran a 60-yard touchdown. And we scored. And we were just, you would have thought we were winning. These guys were probably like, who is this guy, man? What's wrong with him? But it was really important to me. And it didn't matter what the score was. I was out there to try to compete. And after that, I was able to play each and every game, but I never started. And so then it came to my senior year. We played Baylor here at home. I didn't start again, but I got in quickly and scored, and we were competitive, but we lost by a little less than a touchdown. And then that's when I got my first start. And so you think of this, we were playing TCU, and it was right here at home. TCU just beat Oklahoma, in Oklahoma, in Norman, and TCU was ranked in the top 25. SMU hadn't beaten the top 25 team in 20 years, and it was my first start. And we had a battle, and we ended up winning that game 21-10. And we got the iron skillet, and after that, I started the rest of the year. So I was able to start for 10 games as a starting QB, and it was kind of an underdog story. And, I think what I learned from all that is performance is your ticket to admission to anything you want in your life. And the reason I say that is because the reason the Board of Trustees wanted to talk with me was because I was a starting quarterback. If I would have come up a little bit short and been second string quarterback, they wouldn't have invited me to the event. That's just the reality of life. I could speak just as well, I could be just as educated, I could be just as studied up, but if I wouldn't have performed, that wouldn't have happened. And if I wouldn't have had Ashley there to push me to go do that, I wouldn't have had the exposure. One of the reasons that makes that story to me so powerful was in the audience that night was the chair of the Board of Trustees, Carl Sewell, at the time. And as a lot of people here know, I've had a career at Sewell now for 17 years. And the story that I just shared was a very similar story to what I shared with the trustees. And so after I shared all those stories, I came to talk to Ashley. She was my date to the event. And, think about that event. I didn't know how to tie a tie back then. I borrowed our friend Jeff Parker's dad's suit. I'm sure that fit really, really well. I'm sure I looked great. But I felt extremely uncomfortable, like a fish out of water. And but I went over to talk to Ashley afterwards, and Mr. Sewell stood up because she was sitting at his table with him and his wife. As her being my date, she was with them. And I was up at the head table to give a speech. And he said, that story you just told, Jared, of perseverance and overcoming obstacles and staying the course, doing things people aren't willing to do, he said, you're going to be very successful. And again, outwardly, I didn't feel that way because I was wondering, thinking, how is this going to happen? But I said, well, I appreciate it. And he looked at her, he said, man, she's beautiful, talented, driven, very intelligent. And he said, she is going to be unbelievable. I said, absolutely. Then he looked back at me and he said, if you're with her, he said, you must be one heck of a salesman. And I said, well, I appreciate that, sir. And then that night he told me, he said, if you ever want to think about a career in automotive, I'd love to talk to you. And I already had an internship with a financial planning company, and they already offered me a full-time job, and I wanted to play in the NFL, so I decided to stay where I was. And then you think about some of the heartache. Again, I wanted to be a professional football player, and I got to try out for the Dallas Cowboys, and that's pretty cool, right? I got to go out to Valley Ranch, and I was there with Bill Parcells and Jerry Jones and the whole crew, and I was fired up, right? I want to make the team.
Come in.
Unfortunately, it's a brutal world out there. That was a one-day workout, and that was it. I wasn't going to make the team, obviously. You can see that pretty quickly. And so, but to me, I was going to keep going, so I flew out to Ohio and tried out with the arena football team out there, and I talked to some people in Houston, and one of the scouts, actually at the Cowboys, his name is Henry Soroka, he gave me some pretty tough feedback, and he said, there's nets in life that catch people that, from a recruiting standpoint, and he said one in football would be you're 6'4" and above, and he said one would be that you run a 4.5 and below, and one would be you broke every record, one would be you played for the biggest conferences in the country and proven yourself, one would be that you played for a world-renowned coach, and whatever they say, we'll go with it. And then he looked at me and he said, unfortunately, you're not in any of those nets. And that's pretty hard to hear, right? So he said, for a guy like you, the way that you would make it is you got to go to a minor league system for several years and show that you can play and you're not injured. And then I bet 5-6 years down the road, you can get a shot. He said, the reason that is, he said, because if I take you just because I like you and I think you're good, when it doesn't work out, he said, guess what my boss is going to ask me? Tell me what made you think that this guy who fit none of these categories was going to be great, right? So he said, that's too risky of a move. And so eventually, I decided that I was going to quit my job here in Dallas. I was going to move up to Oklahoma. Victor remembers that. We were neighbors at the apartment when that was happening. And we were working at the Gardner Group together, which was a financial planning company. And so I packed up that Tacoma again and went up there. Ashley and I were dating, and she was telling me, she said, for the whole time, she said, I want you to follow your dreams and all those things, all things you'd want to hear. And then when it came time to leave, she said, I can't believe you're doing this. And I said, excuse me? She said, I said, you're kidding me, right?
I said, you gotta go, but
Yeah, I said, you're kidding me. And she said, no, you gotta follow your dreams, but I gotta do what I gotta do too. And I said, man, that's a rough way to leave. That's a rough way to leave. But I was committed to give this a try, and we dated from afar. I was in Oklahoma, and she was here in Dallas. And, but I felt like I was obligated to help with some of the bills that we had here and things like that. And so I got a job at the Macaroni Grill. I was waiting tables after the lunch shift and the dinner shift and playing arena football. And you go from all these accommodations here, and then the next thing you know, you're riding in a bus for 12 or 14 hours to games. And they would leave overnight because we didn't have the resources to have all the hotels and things. So we'd leave overnight, and we would lay, kind of head to toe. I got some stinky socks in my face, as we're trying to get down there. And it was quite the journey. And but I realized very quickly that the dream that I had was not playing in the professional in the NFL and other things. The dream I had was marrying Ashley and raising a family and having a great career. Except for I didn't know how to do those things. And I made a commitment that I was going to come back to Dallas. And I started talking to several people. I went back to my old boss where Victor worked, and unfortunately we had a real small company, and they had kind of moved on and hired some other people. There wasn't capacity. I have a liberal arts degree from SMU, and so I went to a banker, and he was a letterman as well, and he said, you got the wrong degree. I actually went to School Infinity, which is where I was offered, because Rick Coward's a letterman here as well. And they told me at the same time, they just hired a bunch of people from college campus, and said, I don't have a spot for you right now either. And so you think of that, I quit playing arena football, my dreams are kind of over, I'm a college graduate, and then I can't find a job. And it was really tough, very difficult. And Ashley was still saying, she's like, I still think we should date other people. I said, no. I said, that's not in the cards here now. We're in on this. And so I was out, Phil Bennett, my coach, said, you can come down here and coach the camp that I have. I'll pay you $400 for the week. And you have breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And we'll start about 6 in the morning, and you get home at 8 or 9 o'clock. And I owed money, I had debt. And so I went out there and started coaching. And did that Monday and went home. And then on Tuesday, I was right here at Ford Stadium. My phone rang. And I answered. It was a number I didn't know. Hello, this is Jared. Jared, this is Carl Sewell. Mr. Sewell. The only other time I talked to him was at the dinner a year before. He said, Jared, I heard that you were back in town. Is that correct? Yes, sir. He said, I heard you went to Sewell Infinity, and they told you that there was an opportunity there. I said, yes, sir. He said, Jared, I met you a year ago at that dinner, and I told you that if you ever wanted an opportunity and could consider a career, that I'd like to talk to you. And when I say something like that, I mean it. And the Infinity store may not have a spot, but the Lexus store does. And Jerry Griffin's going to call you, and he'll take you through the process. And barring it works out like we think it will, we'd like you to join the team. And so then my next call comes, it's Jerry Griffin. Jerry says, hey, come on up here. I said, well, Jerry, I'm not in the right clothes. I'm out here in shorts and t-shirt, and ball cap, I'm sweating. And he said, I need you to come here today. I said, Jerry, I don't have the clothes to switch. He said, Jared, I said, I need you to come. And so I came up there in shorts and a t-shirt after sweating, and Anthony Contreras is one of my co-workers that several people know, and Anthony went up to Dan Frog, he's the general manager, said, who's this guy here that's interviewing? And Dan Frog looked at me and said, that's the guy who's going to take your job. But I went around and interviewed, and I quit playing arena football in May of 07, and I was in a tough spot. June 15th, 07, that's when I turned 24 years old. And then June 18th, 07 is when I started at Sewell Lexus. And it's coming up here on 17 years. It's been an unbelievable ride. And I'm so thankful for what Mr. Sewell did and for what SMU did for me and for Ashley, my wife, and all of those things that have taken place. And one more story I wanted to share is one thing Mr. Sewell taught me about the value of mentorship and having a mentor. He said the one common theme of all successful people in life is having great people to learn from. And he always challenged us on that. And so over time, I was in a class at Sewell, and they asked us to set out some goals for the year. And I set out a goal that I was going to find a great mentor. And they said, put 30 days of thought to it and come back and tell us who that will be. And so at the end of 30 days, I came back and I said, I'm going to pursue a mentorship with Roger Staubach. And the class laughed at me. There's a few people in there that said, how are you going to do that? I said, I don't know. But I said, I know of some ways that I can get connected with them. And Joe Stollard had actually asked me earlier in my career to be a mentor at a group for military personnel called Allies in Service. And Joe said, I think this would be really good for you. And when I got there, Roger Staubach was the founder of that group. Going back to college, and this is how everything connects. I think God's always working His plan, whether you know it or you don't know it. When I was a senior as a captain, Roger Staubach was the kickoff speaker for our luncheon. Back up even 2 years before that, I was an intern at a place called AXA Advisors. And the guy there, he was in his 60s at the time. He said, if you want to come to my friend Roger's house, let me know. And I'm kind of thinking, what would I want to go? He said, to play basketball. If you ever want to go to Roger's house to play basketball, let me know. And I'm thinking, why would I want to go to your friend Roger's house to play basketball? I have no idea what this would even mean. For some reason, I felt compelled to do it. And so one day I brought my stuff and we hopped in the car. He said, do you know where we're going? I said, yeah, your friend Roger's house. And he said, do you know who Roger is? I said, no. He who's your friend? He said, well, it's Roger Staubach. And he said, I thought that it would be good for you to meet him since he played quarterback and you could be quarterback of the Mustangs and all that. And so let's come on out there. And he said, the rules are, if he doesn't want to talk, you don't talk, because he has people come to his house all the time. But if he comes outside, that means he's open to conversation, and then you can sit down and talk to him. So we sat on a bench there and talked at the end. And then 3 months later or so, he's the kickoff speaker. Then a year or two later, he's speaking at the Anatol, and I stayed around. And every time I'd see him, I'd try to connect the dots. Hey, remember me? I'm Jared. You know, the guy's kind of like, no. I don't remember you, but, you know, I just kept, every time I'd see him, I kept doing that. And so I said, you know, I'm going to try. So the journey to Roger went this way. I knew a guy named Rick, who I knew Roger. So I called Rick. Said, hey, Rick, here's what I'm trying to do with the mentorship. And he introduced me later to a lady named Clay Christopher. And then she introduced me later to a lady named Anita Grisham. And this was over about 6 to 12 months. And then Anita connected me to Roger Staubach. And I remember being in one of our conference rooms at Sewell. I had this conversation, so I had it all scripted out. And I told him, I said, I would like to learn from you, and you know, the things that you've done, the way you've led your life is fantastic. And I said, I would like to be able to sit down and get to know you, and have you spend some time and teach me. And he really said, I don't necessarily have the time, and but I will go to lunch with you once. And so we go to lunch, and one of the things I really appreciated about him, he told me, he said, you know, the most cherished relationship in your life is with your wife. He said, so as you're leading people, watch how they treat their spouse. And he said, because that will tell you a lot about who they are. And he said, and also, he said, watch how they treat someone they think is beneath them. So that could be someone who's a valet or someone who's cleaning the floors. He said, everyone will try to kiss up to people in life they want to get something from. But how they treat people that they think are beneath them will tell you what's truly in their heart. And the things I appreciate about him so much is this guy's had so much success, but he was so grounded. And Ashley actually was president of our neighborhood association at the time. And as I set up that lunch with him, I set it up 30 days in the future. She got a call from Jennifer Staubach Gates, Roger's daughter, who was running for city council, and she was looking for a place to host an event. Now, I've never hosted a political event before that or after, ever. But somehow, some way, by a plan that wasn't mine, she got a call and we ended up hosting her at our house. Now, that was in between the time I set the lunch and the time I went to lunch. And so by the time I got to lunch, he said, thank you so much for hosting my daughter. That really means a lot. It changed the relationship. Then at Sewell Lexus the next day, I was walking around the corner and I started talking to a gentleman. And I didn't mention anything about Roger at all. There'd be no reason I would. This customer told me for no reason that Roger was his best friend. I don't know how it came up. I really don't. And I told him, I said, well, I just went to lunch with him yesterday. I've been trying to create this relationship. And he said, I'm going to send him an email right now, and we're all going to go to lunch together. And so he set it up, and he sent him an email, and Roger said, yes, Jared's a fine young man. And I did go to lunch with him, and we'll go again. Well, then at the lunch, Mr. Glazier, Bennett Glazier, who owns Glazier Distributing, and that's who helped us with this. He said, well, Roger, you have this flag football game every Thanksgiving, and you're getting a little older, and you play quarterback out there. It's your family game, but I think it's about time you get another QB. And he said, I think you need a backup. And Roger said, yeah, I think I do. And so he invited me to the family flag football game. And for 10 years now, I've been the backup quarterback for Mr. Staubach. I'm never going to take his position. It's his position. It's his position. But, you know, just that, all of those things tell me that, you know, if a guy from Tehachapi, California, that had a dream and had a vision and had a loving family and siblings and a network of support, if a person like that can continue to grow and have successes and stay the course and meet all these people, that anybody can. And that's why I wanted to write the book. It wasn't for money, it's not for money. It's to connect people like this. It's to be able to tell stories. It's hopefully to inspire the kids. The kids are so inspired they ran out. You know? They don't want any more, right? But it's a way to say thank you. And so I'll wrap this up by just I thank each of you for supporting our family. I thank all the people that helped this book come to life. I hope that it touches a life, has somebody inspired to push forward, to persevere, and to rise above. So I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Thank you.